Today was Apple's major developer conference, and as expected, it was centered around artificial intelligence. This isn't a video about what Apple's stock is going to do. I don't care about any of that. This is about the technology. Getting AI into the hands of everyday people. That's exactly what this is going to do. My initial takeaway from the event, thoughts off the top of my head. Number one, I'm a little disappointed Apple doesn't have their own solutions, their own large language models. We knew it was going to be a partnership. We figured it probably would be OpenAI as the leader in this space, and that's exactly what it was. And a lot of their solutions they rolled out felt like, oh, this looks like Microsoft, Microsoft's Copilot, and a lot of their solutions. And of course, because it's integrated with the same backend there, the same AI technology stack. Beyond that, I heard some stuff that they're going to first route your questions, your inquiries, your tasks to Siri. And then only if Siri can't handle the task at hand would it pass that along to OpenAI, to ChatGPT, whatever. I don't want Siri fielding anything. I want to turn that off and just jump straight into AI. I hope they don't make me use Siri. I hate it. I don't care if they say it's better. I don't like it. So we'll have to see kind of how that whole integration plays out. Now, we know what Apple's going to do. They're going to package it well. It's going to be integrated in their software other than Siri. And, people are going to get introduced to this technology for the first time, even though some of us early adopters were using GPT 4.0 and Claude 3 and Midjourney and local language models on our computers and all sorts of stuff. Your everyday person, a lot of people at least, they've never tried this out. It's going to introduce them to the future in a lot of ways. You're going to have this stuff, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your business life. You're going to be left behind without it. So, the analyst in this video we're going to watch, it's his feeling this is Apple's biggest day since the iPhone was originally announced. He could be right. Again, this is going to be transformative, except for the power driving that transformation. Well, it's kind of someone else's, isn't it? It's going to be Microsoft and OpenAI's technology. Anyway, still a big day. Let's play the clip here.
Bring in Deepwater Asset Management's Gene Munster. Gene, what'd you make of this?
Melissa, I felt like I was watching a different event just hearing the lead up. I've got a ton of respect for your Steam panel. I had a totally different takeaway. True, check the box. All these features were to be expected, but Apple's doing two things here, and I think Steve framed this in. Number one is that they are allowing basically 20% of the world's population to access AI for the first time. We talk about it all the time. Most people have never experienced it, and they just made it that you can access in a personalized way that gets to your text, your photos. Elon may have a different view about Apple's privacy. It's a lot better than Meta or Google. So that's piece number one.
And he's right. Again, this is going to get AI into the hands of the masses, using it for practical purposes on a daily basis. I think a lot of people, again, felt kind of like I did, a little underwhelmed that it's not really Apple's technology in any way. They're leveraging OpenAI, and we've kind of seen a lot of this stuff already. But that's kind of what Apple does, isn't it? They let other people, really push the boundaries, and then they find a way to cleanly integrate it into their system. Now, if you didn't hear, Elon Musk said he's going to ban Apple devices from all of his businesses. So you're going to go work at Tesla. You're going to visit SpaceX. He's claiming, and I think this is just some theater for the day, but he's claiming that that phone cannot come onto his business premises, that if Apple is too stupid to make their own AI, there's no way they could build the safeguards, to keep those devices safe. Again, I think a lot of that is probably theater. I doubt he's going to have an Apple ban on all of his business properties, but, we'll have to see how that plays out.
Number two is just that, taking the friction out of access to it. You don't have to sign up for a ChatGPT account. It just comes with your device. I thought the demos that they showed, again, it was expected, but for the average person, this is must-have. If you don't have AI powered, if Apple didn't do this, they would be totally out of luck over the long term. They did it, and I think that this will ultimately, the punchline here is they're going to grow next year faster than the street thinks. The street's looking for 6% growth. I bet it's going to be 10% plus.
Again, I don't really care about the financial aspect for the stock. I own Apple stock. I have S&P 500, whatever. It's going to do fine, I'm sure. But they're going to move an awful lot of devices. Nowadays, each upgrade is not a big deal. Like, why do I need the newest Apple phone? I'm kind of a nut. I always buy the newest Apple products, of course. but it's been kind of underwhelming. But this is going to be a reason to drive units. Of course, you're going to want these new features. You're going to want to be able to use these AI systems, and you're going to need the latest and greatest to do so. So from a business standpoint, I think it'll be great with iPhones. The refresh rate slowing down. This should tick back up in a significant way. But I still say they're in trouble if they're always having to rely on OpenAI and Microsoft. They got to come up with their own solutions here, and they should be able to. They have unlimited money. There's no real moat within artificial intelligence. Yes, OpenAI is the leader, but you saw how quickly Claude 3 jumped up there, surpassed for a little while GPT. Still is probably better at some things than GPT is. And so a lot of these open source models are quite powerful and competitive. So I'm not really sure why Apple doesn't have their own solutions here. I'm sure they're working on them in the background, and eventually they're going to have to decouple from Microsoft and build out their own back end here.
Next year, meaning for full year, for fiscal year 2025.
Yeah, it's going to take time.
Correct?
I agree with Dan. I think Dan was talking about it's going to take time for this to build momentum. It's going to, this won't happen overnight, but this is a big deal. If you don't have these features, it's the fabric that's going to run the devices. If you don't have it, you're going to feel like you're on a flip phone.
So, Gene, when you think about sort of how this is monetizable, is it initially mostly going to be on the hardware side? In other words, when you're upgrading your iPhone, you're thinking about getting the more expensive version as opposed to the less expensive version, and eventually it turns into a services stream?
That's a problem right now for all AI, not just Apple, but how are we going to make a business out of this? What's the business application? And you see this also analogous with cryptocurrencies, right? Like we're trying to figure out that fit. How do we make these into true systems that people use and rely on, and how do you monetize it? And they're working through that kind of stuff right now.
I think that's right. The first chapter, and I put that chapter over the next 1 to 3 years, is going to be this slow rising tide of upgrade. iPhone returning to 5%, 7% growth. I think the second phase is probably some specific services that they'll have around kind of higher feature AI. They didn't talk about agentic AI, agent AI. This is basically the ability, we've talked about this in the past, of AI actually doing tasks for you. Complicated, multi-layered tasks, contacting people, organizing things. That's a big opportunity longer term. But you are correct, Melissa. This is about getting people to recognize that their current phone isn't nearly good enough, and I think that they hit it. This is the biggest day for Apple since the iPhone, full stop.
So, Gene, Tim, I'm going to kind of repeat my view because I think I'm more in agreement with you, and that's not what I'm here to do, is say, hey, but what I'm hearing is that every major technology company, including Microsoft and ChatGPT and Google, know they have to work with Apple. And that this installed base is the ticket to implementation for the biggest AI companies in the world. But it doesn't happen without Apple. And so the question really is, because if we all agree that the refresh isn't that compelling or necessary until 25, what are they going to do? What is it going to require for them from a technology perspective to get that phone in shape to be able to support all this?
So this year, the phone, their overall business is going to be up about 2%. Calendar 24 is not going to be a particularly good year. It's going to be better than the down 2% over the past year and a half. But so to answer your question, there's not a lot that they can do now. This is really comes down to what's going to happen in the fall. And
this is really true, not just Apple's business, but we're probably ramping up to, in artificial intelligence, really this technology to start steamrolling in 2025. That's probably we'll see this profound effect with everyone adopting it, having to have this both in business and their personal life. I think 2025 is the year where that takeover, that shift becomes dramatic and noticeable in a much bigger way.
I predict there's going to be 10, 15% of the base is going to get these devices. They're going to show it to their friends, and they're going to want to get their next. They're going to want to move to upgrade. So I think this is a very real upgrade cycle. I do caution that my one cautionary piece is I'm talking about 1 to 3 good years. I think the stock goes up on that. There is an underlying question about where does the core competency of AI lie. Apple did 2 today. They're working with GPT. They're doing some of their own, but you really have to have all of your AI under your control for your destiny. That's a challenge longer term for Apple. It's a challenge for Google. It's a challenge for Microsoft and Amazon. So I think that from a technical standpoint, Tim, what do they need to do? They need to do all this stuff themselves. They can't rely on a third party to power these insights.
What do you? And I think that's the big part here. For being a player in the future, when you go farther out, you need to be the one in control of these models, because that's who's going to have the power. And then, of course, the equipment. So NVIDIA, ARM, these types of companies are the ones that are building the hardware you need, and then that software as well. So I don't think that they can really source that power from Microsoft for too long. And I think that's a little bit why people were underwhelmed today. But, I think Apple will have to come to the table with their own solutions. And you want that to happen, because you don't want one or two companies, holding all of that power. You don't want Microsoft just to totally run away with this sucker, and everyone has to rely on them. That is one of the biggest dangers to this technology, why it can do a lot of good in the hands of one company, no less Microsoft. That could be a big, big problem.
Make of this, Gene. If Apple integrates, I'm reading, so apologies, OpenAI at the OS level, then Apple devices will be banned at my companies. That's Elon Musk, who seems to have some problem with Apple. I mean, does that make any sense? Or other people going to have those same concerns?
I think highly of Elon. It's hard to read what he's thinking there. I would say this: when it comes to privacy, Apple's not perfect, but they're better than, definitely better than Google when it comes to privacy, or Meta, and those are really some of your other choices. And so I think that this is, I think Elon's kind of surfing the headlines today and trying to poke the bear. And I don't think there's going to be any substance. I don't think outside of China, you'll definitely see this in China, but outside of China, I would be very surprised if you see organizations starting to ban Apple devices based on access to generative AI.
This is going to be a problem, though, for sure. Governments, forget if it's GPT or some other AI, they're going to have to look at these systems, and no one really knows everything that's going on there. And it gets quite complicated, and so it's going to be a security risk. The government might look at this and say, hey, can we really have our government officials using iPhones or Androids or anything that has these AI capabilities? Can you let them in the building? It is a different level. And so even though I think really Elon's quotes today are a little bit of theater, as we go forward and these artificial intelligence systems become more powerful, it's a conversation that more people are going to have. That's for sure.
Gene, it's Dan. I consider you a great friend. You've been a great friend of the show for a very long time. I respect your work tremendously.
Thank you.
But I want to give you the opportunity to take back that comment that this is the biggest day for Apple since they launched the iPhone in 2007.
I've thought a lot about it since March 26th. That's when Greg Jaws put the text out that said this is basically saying this is going to be an AI event. I thought about what the iPhone brought. Really what the iPhone did is it added touch. Why that's so important is that opened up the whole concept of having apps on your device. It changed a phone to a computer in your pocket. That was through touch. That was a huge deal. It took years to fully realize that potential. When it comes to AI, the ability to infuse intelligence throughout all of the products to allow you to do things different, in my view, is a bigger step forward than touch. And I think touch was the last big one with the iPhone. So have a ton of respect. I love you, Dan. I'm going to stand behind that. I think this is the biggest day since 2007.
And he's not totally wrong from this perspective. Remember this, the first iPhone was a real junker. You couldn't even send a picture through text. You couldn't do a lot of stuff. It was wildly expensive compared to everything else. And of course, from there, Android rolled out their own offering and expanded to be very big. So, this is the future. Probably is the biggest day since we had touch smartphones in our hands. It's going to be that transformative, if not more so. And it's going to jump over to your personal computers. And it's just going to change everything, your job, your life, everything. So, yeah, it probably is that big, even though it was a little underwhelming, especially compared to that iPhone announcement, because everyone was waiting for it. They got what they wanted. That wasn't the case here today, but some of that may be the world doesn't know really what they want. Let me know what you think down below. As always, please like, please subscribe. The revolution will be televised right here on Jungle Link.